Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness Is Egg-Shaped, and you'll see that I am kitted out a little bit differently for this one. I am really excited to speak to someone that contacted through lockdown, that strange time where we were interacting with people we'd never met on social media platforms that we use too much. Well, I use too much. But social media has been a social thing for me. It's helped me to build those relationships I talk so much about. We've shared some experiences virtually and in real life, and we're making some memories. And I'm really hoping that this is going to provide a bit of a platform to let Matt tell a story about something that is on the lips of everyone, whether you're in the professional game, the grassroots game, kids game, women's game, or you're just walking down the street. People are thinking and talking about this issue. And we've touched on it with various different guests. Through their own experiences and through their own challenges, and I've got my own. I'm very happy and very content, but there are always challenges, and educating yourself is one of the best ways to meet those challenges head on. So let's bring in the expert, the man from Mindset Health, Mental Health Matters, Mr. Matt Mason-Hames. Hello, sir.
Morning, you all right?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Good to see you. How are things finding you at the moment?
Busy, which is I'm not sure is a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, good. The community kit bag and mindset sport is absolutely flying. The training side of it's going really well. So yeah, all good at the moment.
Good. Well, let's talk about some of it. You've got so many things going on. You spin a lot of plates, and all of them are trying to make the world a better place. So let's start at the beginning. Why and what was the trigger for you to get involved in mental health?
Um, it's a weird one because I was diagnosed with depression and generalized anxiety when I was in my mid-20s, which was obviously a really different time to get a diagnosis. It's like 25 years ago. So didn't talk about it. Nobody spoke about poor mental health. And, I look back a long time and I can see the things that I know now, I can see in myself as a kid. But more recently, it was around, I was studying to do health and safety. I wanted a career change. I'd been in restaurants for, a long time and I wanted a career change. So I was studying going to health and safety when I realized that we're quite good at looking after the physical side of people, and not so good at looking after the mental health side of people at work. So I sort of veered down that route, became a mental health first aider, really enjoyed it, and really liked the bits and pieces that were going on. And part of it was around the death of my father and the fact that I noticed how differently my brother and my sister and me were all treated by the companies that we worked for, and how we were supported very, very differently. And it was like, companies need more education and bits and pieces. So I then became an instructor. Then lockdown hit, so didn't really get out to do much. And then, so mindset was born out of that passion, really, to help companies and have conversations with them, their staff, to make sure that they're all right, really. That's where that came from. That then developed.
I love it. I'm passionate about this. It's something I read about. I'm interested and I'm interested to get your view on this. When you look back, one of the things I feel people look for with mental health are triggers, are reasons for things that happen. But we all have those things going on, but it affects people differently. How do you view that? Is there triggers? Are there things that we can look at and then maybe anticipate?
There are signs and symptoms that come through, but you got to understand that everybody has an individual view on the world. And I like to look at it as a set of lenses. You go to the opticians and they drop in all those lenses in front of you and they go, which one's better, A or B, and then one or two, and drop all those things in, and eventually you get your prescription. And that's kind of how we look at life. Well, it depends on how old you are, where you're educated, where you live, whether you're religious or not, your sex, your sexuality, all those things overlay each other and create a focal point on the world. And that focal point will shift as you learn more and you change and you develop. So what looks fine to one person, and it's very, very different to somebody else, because everybody puts a different weight on something and an experience and this side, and whether or not we've been through the same thing. The weight that I put on something and the journey that I got there that took me to that point is very, very different to everybody else's. So, you know, just using that sort of a lens analogy, that optician thing, you can see that everybody has a different focus on the world. So when you're talking about people and you're talking about people who have mental health illness or poor mental health, it's really, really key to try and understand that whilst you might not see it as a problem, they do. And that's where we need to focus. And all too often we try and throw a blanket over it and go, that'll fix it. and it doesn't. So we need to look at that individuality that comes with mental health. And that's kind of my way of looking at it.
We see those things that churn through social media, and there's a lot on social media, and there needs to be a filter, a personal filter, not I don't think we can keep putting pressure on the organizations to put filters on these things. We need to have filters, and that's where education comes in. So you went about this process because you wanted a change, and then you wanted to learn more.
Yeah.
When you're going through that mental health first aid course, and it's it's a buzz, there are companies who are making a big deal of the number of people they put through these things, but we've all sat in professional development courses and we've gone back on Monday morning and we do it exactly the same way as we did the previous week.
Yeah.
What is it about the mental health first aid training or mental health awareness training, or there's a lot of suppliers? What is it that you think is making significant change in the workplace?
I think that it's viewed. There are companies out there that are doing it to tick a box, like you say, and if you go out there to tick that box and say we've got 45 mental health first aiders in our company and it's the same number of physical first aiders, then you're doing it wrong. Yes, mental health first aid is a brilliant tool, but it's not the toolbox. You need to have lots and lots of different things. I think I'm hoping people are starting to realize that you can't just chuck people in at the deep end and go, right, you sort it all out. It needs to be part of a massive, massive toolbox. And people are starting to realize that. And I used the analogy the other day in a chat with someone that in the past, we've kind of turned around and gone, here's a box of chocolates to everybody. So everybody gets the same. Most people will like a lot of it. And then there's a few bits that nobody will like. But what we need to do is we need to start a pick and mix. And yes, there are restrictions on that. But, putting in a gym into your office, for example, that's great. But you might not have an office. You might not be using it. Having gym memberships is great. But when you're 45 like me with a bad back and a dodgy knee, and you can't barely get out of bed in the morning, you don't want a gym membership, and things like that. So you just have to be able to pick and choose for people. I think that's where people are finally starting to realize. But also, it's also about educating everybody a little bit, not just having 2 or 3 key people who understand everything or can help. It's about educating everybody to spot those signs and those symptoms and offer that support. And that doesn't have to be done with mental health first aid training. That can just be done in an hour and half an hour, whatever. So that's key, is everybody understanding that conversation as well.
Are there still things that you see, and I'll use social media again, are there still things you see on social media that make you suck your teeth? I mean, that you look at it and you go, oh no, I can't believe that's there. I mean, there must be things that wind you up and you think that's a backward step or it's outdated.
And I'm sure people think about some of the stuff that I do. But yeah, that positive mental attitude, PMA, whatever it used to be that we used to talk about, no, that winds me up. That's the one thing that gets me. There's nothing wrong with being sad. There's nothing wrong with being upset. There's nothing wrong with any of those emotions. And being positive constantly does not solve a problem. Sometimes you need to cry. Sometimes you need to be upset. Sometimes you need those emotions to process what's going on. So yes, mindset not my mindset, but mindset can help in the, when you're talking about things like CBT, where you're changing the attitudes to activating events and all that sort of stuff. Yes, that can help and can support a positive mindset and can change the consequences of your actions and other people's actions. But to constantly promote not being miserable as a solution, if it was that simple, I wouldn't be doing my job. I wouldn't be shoving antidepressants down my throat every day. It would be a much simpler world, wouldn't it? But it's not that simple, so we have to do other things.
Yeah, there's so many messages like that. One of them that's got me through this Six Nations period. There, one of the teams has to lose
Mm.
mostly. Right? Don't wind me up by commenting now that yes, you can draw, but one team tends to be more disappointed at the final whistle than another, and you're then not allowed to smile. If you've lost, you're not allowed to smile because then it doesn't mean anything to you. And you're not allowed to go and get selfies taken after the game because you're supposed to be sad. And there's so much, there's so many mixed messages about emotion. But as you've said, it's an individual thing, and we've no idea what's going on behind the eyes and under the shirt of
Mm.
those individuals. Are there times where you've put on a face for those around you?
Yeah, constantly. To be honest, I'm doing it right now. I've been really struggling the past couple of weeks. I don't know, nothing in particular, nothing major. Lots of little bits, and I've had a real down couple of weeks. But I'm lucky enough to know, and I've educated myself enough about myself, and that's the key. It's educating about yourself, that I know the triggers, I know the action points, I know what to do to get myself better. And one of those things is, my knee's gone again, so I've not been playing rugby the last couple of months. So one of my um, absolute releases has gone. So I'm having to find other things that I can do, and that's key to me. And that's how I'm sort of building my recovery out of this slump that I found myself in, and this the early onsets of a depressive episode that I found myself in, was like, okay, I've spotted the signs. The signs and symptoms are happening. I've worked that out. I've spoken to the people I need to speak to say this is happening, and they've all recognised it. And I've realised that one of my outlets isn't available, so I've gone out and found some other stuff. And that's so. Yeah, I constantly mask, but what is irritating about that, and as you just said about the things, that might have been an individual triumph for that person at that match. They might have played out their skin. They might have had an absolute blinder, or they executed their game plan 100%, and they walk away going. They go, yes, I had a blinder. This time last season they put 60 against us or whatever it is, and they've only put 10 against us. That's an absolute triumph. So why can't that be celebrated? For the individual. Why can't the team go, what? This is a great effort. We've moved on. We've progressed. But we all tend to focus on winning rather than progression. And I think that's one of those things that I look at when I talk about recovery. Is recovery isn't being back to your old self, it isn't being the best. It's about understanding where you are now and trying to improve a little bit every day. And if you do take a setback, then you know how to manage it. And that's kind of the key for me in those sorts of situations.
So you came from the restaurant industry. I mean, pressure, complaints, issues, weird work schedule. Take your pick. Kitchens can be hellish places,
Mm.
terrible environments, and there's this stereotype of the grumpy head chef who swears, and you get somebody like Gordon Ramsay, who I hope is just portraying a character rather than behaving like that. Were you conscious of people you worked with and people who you were in charge of, and your boss? Were you aware of the part mental health played, or were you just getting work done?
I was much more naive around that. I knew about mine sort of that time ago. I was very aware of my mental health, and I was quite happy to talk about my mental health and the issues I had with it. However, didn't really, I've stood up a few times with my head above the parapet and said, not keen on that type of behaviour from um, managers and line managers and stuff like that. But I was very much just getting on with it back then. I was a bit younger, I was a bit more naive, um, but I just ploughed on. And regardless of the effect it was having on me and my life, and I look back at it now and I sit there and think, wow, I was doing that wrong, I was doing this wrong, you know, beautiful 2020 hindsight.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's the greatest gift, isn't it? Hindsight.
and it's just like, would I change? I met some absolutely amazing people and had some absolutely amazing experiences. I love working in restaurants. I love working that close, that camaraderie that you get that I don't get sat in my office in my garden
Yeah.
on my own, surrounded by smelly boots and kit over there. But so I miss that side of it. But I would really, really love to go back in and educate myself and others around about what I know now. That would be amazing to have that ability to go back
I'm
and
I'm
look at it,
reading
mate.
I'm reading some books at the moment. I never normally do this because I'm a PE teacher. I can only usually handle one book at a time, but I've actually got two or three on the go at the moment. And I'm reading one at the moment, and it's talking about team culture. Not in sport. There's a couple of sport examples, but team culture. And there's examples of increasing productivity by making the staff not necessarily happier. And there's a big bit in it about happiness is not necessarily the most important thing in a team. But there's bits about the desks being closer has been scientifically proven to increase productivity. The amount of eye contact you make increases productivity. Having a kitchen with nice coffee in it increases productivity. So although people spend less time at their desk, when they're at the desk, they're more productive, they feel included, and then the output is greater. Is that too simple to benefit mental health?
No, and yes. Does that make sense? Yes, little bits like great coffee in the kitchen. It's going to help loads of people, but if you don't do caffeine or you don't work in the office, then it's irrelevant. Having tiny desks will depend on what you need to do. If you're just sitting there, with a computer screen, it's great. But if you've got to pull out plans and look at different bits of pieces of paper, then it's not helpful at all. So again, it's that yes, they would be great tools, and yes, there is a lot of stuff around what is better for the greater good, if you know what I mean. That sort of the general sweeping statements, but there will always be one or two that don't fit into that pattern, and you need to adjust for those people as well. And you have to by law, but you have, but equally, I I've got a tiny little desk in my office, but I used to really love my having a big wide desk when I used to work for a well-known DIY company. Um, I used to have it, and then we all got squeezed and squeezed and squeezed into smaller and smaller spaces as more people came into the office. And in the end, it was like this. There's a point where you go, in fact, you're a bit too close now. But again, what happens when that coffee runs out? Or you can't supply that grade of coffee, then that adds to somebody else's problem because you can't get that coffee or you can't do this. So you have to be wary of doing things like that. That when you Free Fruit Friday does not solve well-being.
Yeah.
um, but the scientific. There's nothing wrong with looking at that, and it will help. But your best bet is to ask the people that work with you, what do they want? What do they need? And if there's a pattern, such as we all want great coffee, and you can implement that, and it doesn't cost a fortune, and 99% of people are going to benefit, chuck it in.
Mm.
If it turns out that it's a great idea had by somebody who thought it was in a team that goes, this will do, and nobody uses it, bin it off. There's no benefit to you. Yeah.
I used to have a boss who said the door was always open. And I think literally the door was always open. But obviously what they meant was you can always come and see me. And I don't think anybody walks through that door. I mean, genuinely, I don't think I certainly didn't. And younger and much more naive in those days. I then had a boss whose door was always closed. And I don't think I've ever spoken to a boss as much as I did that boss.
Yeah.
And I always had to go through secretary, but I spoke to her so much before I then got to the boss. How much time, and I think I might be able to preempt this answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How much time are bosses, line managers willing to give to monitoring and supporting the mental health of employees?
Willing or able? There is
That's
the question.
probably the $1,000,000 question, isn't it?
I don't. I think there are very few bosses who go into work with the aim of making their team's life miserable. I don't think there are many. There are some who don't know how to deal with people because we've got, for a long time we've promoted people on ability for the job that they do. And that's how we sort of work. You're really good. You're a really good salesperson, so you're going to lead the sales team, and that's it. And that's their education. They're not taught how to manage people. They're not taught how to deal with all the intricacies of staff and this sort of stuff. We want everybody to be like you because you're a great salesperson. Well, not everybody is like that. So what you've done is you've taken your best salesperson off the team, so they're not selling anymore. They're now managing staff that they don't want to do and don't know how to do, and you wonder why everybody else flops. Because there may be somebody who isn't the best salesperson in that team, but is a really good people manager. And then you have managers who are given task, and you have to understand. And then you need to understand whether you want your line managers to look after people or look after task. And I think there's a place for both, and I think teams can have both. There's a project manager as such and a people manager. However, do lots of managers get the skills needed? No, they don't get even the inkling. They're just told to go and manage teams, and that's where teams tend to fail, because they've got somebody that they're all trying to, or they're all told to be like, and that's not conducive to getting that environment. And I think you need to have a balance of lots and lots of different people in a team to make it work.
That's an interesting point. And an old hero of mine who spoke about teaching, and he said teachers should get paid more, because the way teachers are recognised is to get promoted, and then they end up doing less teaching, which was the thing they were good at, and they spend more time on a computer or at a desk and dealing with things that actually, like you said, they weren't necessarily trained for and wasn't their skill set. And I suppose there's also a sporting context there. The best players don't always make the best coaches or managers. And that's, we could debate that one till the cows come home. So you go into a completely new environment. You think you're going to do one thing. You find that actually what's become your passion and now your profession is dealing with mental health and educating others. Now you've got lots of strands going on at the moment. Let's probably start, I suppose, at the grassroots, and then we'll see how that supports the others. Yeah. So you have the community kit bag, which is an amazing concept, and I want to try and help you to promote this to benefit the people immediately, but then others. So talk us through the rationale and then what it is that actually happens for the community kit bag.
So the community kit bag sort of came about via Mindset Sport, as your t-shirt is so quite proudly displaying. There we go. Puff my chest up. So Mindset Sport came about during lockdown, and that's how we started talking. And because that I started helping out my local rugby club. I was playing for them, but we realised that during lockdown the players are going to need some other support. So we started doing blogs and we started doing information for them. That then I sort of went, well, everybody needs to be able to access this. So created a very basic website which set up Mindset Sport, threw everything on there, and it's still all there and it's still in its bits, and I need to sort it out because it's a bit of a untidy mess. But about May last year, somebody sort of said, I'd love to play rugby, but I can't get hold of any boots. I can't afford boots. And there was also, I also read a quote, I think it was Christian Wade, said, I nearly didn't start playing rugby because I didn't want my mum to have to wash the kit every week. And I was like, there's so many other barriers to getting into sport and the benefits that sport brings to physical health, mental health, and problem solving, all those sorts of things. So I found some boots on Facebook, those free pages on Facebook, and said, took those in and gave them out. And then it went nuts. And so I've now got, that side of my office is a disgrace. I had to move into the bigger shed in my garden to fit it all in. The van is full. I've got a 20-foot trailer full of stuff. And there's loads of stuff sat outside, and it's basically, the idea is that if you want to get into sport, you can without the cost. So I've got everything. I've got hockey sticks, rugby boots, padding, footballs, football boots, tennis stuff, cricket gear, all sorts of stuff that, if I can help reduce that cost barrier into sports, then brilliant. That's the plan. And then there are, obviously, it ticks a sustainability box as well, which is always good. So all of our stuff is donated. So it removes loads of stuff from landfill, which is obviously brilliant as well. And those that can afford to donate something or anything, what we do is we take the money and any profits of that will then supply free mental health first aid training to grassroots sports clubs. So we'll put on 1, maybe 2 places a month on the courses that are run. Oh, see ya. And depending on how much money we raise the previous month, that will He's going to stay still. There we go. And then that will go and put places on for grassroots sports clubs, and they can apply via the website for a place, and then they sort of get in a draw, and I draw names out of a hat every month, and then they stay in there. They don't disappear. They stay in there, and I keep pulling them out. So that's it, basically. That's the very basic crux. And we've got things like sport in a box, which, you tell me your size, I'll chuck you, if you want a rugby box, there'll be rugby boots, shorts, socks, rugby shirt, rugby ball, and a gum shield chucked in, I think, posted out to you. And we've got vouchers. So, if we turn up at a rugby club or a football club or a food bank or wherever it is we turn up, what we do is we email vouchers beforehand to the organisers so that people can access it free. They don't have to ask. They can just get a voucher, turn up, and just give me the voucher, and then go in and take what they need. So that we're trying to remove that barrier and almost that sort of things that people don't have to ask for it, because you don't want to turn up at your sports club and go, I really want to play, but I haven't got any boots, and I don't know where I can get a gum shield from, and I can't necessarily afford it. You want to turn up ready, looking like your friends, fitting in, and that's kind of what we want to do, really, is give that people the opportunity to turn up on an equal pegging to everybody else and play, because there's probably loads of athletes out there that don't get the chance to run around, and there's loads of people that don't get the chance to run around just for themselves because they can't afford the kit, or they can't get to the rugby club, or they've got to make a choice between both. And so that's where it sort of stemmed from, really.
So you're trying to give people access to sport through furnishing them with the sort of basics, I suppose, that lots of us take really for granted. How then do people, so at the moment it sounds like it's individuals, how do people contact you to try and make a significant impact in their community?
So I am starting to have collection boxes, and what I really, I guess the ultimate goal is to be able to get out and about and have, I've got a trailer shop, so I can take the trailer shop out to anywhere in the UK. It can go anywhere, and it can be set up depending on the weather. So I can go anywhere with that on a weekend, set it up in your community, and help out. Yeah, if you've got a club that needs that one Sunday's got a minis tournament or a junior tournament going on, whatever, I'll come up. Or you've got a recruitment day, for at the beginning of next season over the summer, give me a shout. I'll come up. People can get stuff. Ideally, yeah, lovely. I'd love to be able to have hundreds of community kit bag trailers spinning around the country, but I'm not quite there yet. But you can just email me via the website, and if you want sport in a box, I can pack it up. We did some work with a charity recently where we delivered 50 boxes of sports gear to somebody, to a community. We were out at Camberley Food Bank a couple of weeks ago, and we're going back in another couple of weeks and we just set up and help out. But yeah, we'll cover the cost of any postage if anybody wants to send us stuff, can send us stuff, whatever. Yeah, so this is the next step, really. It's how do I get it out? And that's the kind of bit I'm working on. Yeah, it's great the fact that I can be within an hour of where I am, and I do all that sort of stuff. And the local community have been amazing at delivering stuff, as have some of the professional sports teams. Thank you, London Irish, and thank you, Harlequins. Trying to get some more. But so yeah, that's my next step, really. Is how do I take this from something that supports a tiny little corner of Hampshire and Surrey very well to something that can support the entire of the UK. So that's my challenge.
And
So anybody who's got any ideas, please contact me and let me know, because I'm struggling with that bit.
Schools, guidance teachers, PE teachers, social workers, have you had contacts from those sources?
Yeah, it's all of a sudden starting to pick up. Yeah, so lots of local schools, and and I'm very fortunate where I live in the fact that there are lots of very affluent schools within a stone's throw of my house. So they're constantly got kits and boots, and like you say, so that's very nice, and I can pass those on. But I need to get more into it's all great me rocking up at a rugby club or a football club. Those people have already got access to means mostly, but I want to start getting into places which maybe don't have access to sports as much as into inner cities, into deprived areas. Those sorts of areas is where this needs to go. So I guess my aim is to do an ideal weekend would be a lovely weekend at a nice affluent club where people come in and buy stuff because they can, and donate, and then I spend the next day or just giving stuff away, so that I get that nice balance of I'm able to support the grassroots sports club by having a free place, but I'm also able to do what we actually need to do, which is give people access to sport by giving them the basics. That would be my ideal weekend.
So hopefully that improves mental health because people are involved, they're participating in sport, they feel good, they're building relationships, they're making connections with people. But the next layer to this is that you want to be delivering mental health first aid training to clubs so they can support everyone. And the uptake of that appears to be, from what I'm watching on social media, and I've been through the website, and I think you're doing yourself a disservice. The website looks pretty good to me, especially when you call it a jumble. If you were to see what's going on off camera here, you would know what a jumble is. So it seems like the training is going well. Is it well received, and is there any follow-up feedback that you've got that's made you, giving you a jolt? Yet I've got to keep going with this.
It's really tough because obviously everybody's a volunteer. So finding the right passage of courses and the right timing of courses to get the volunteers on is really, really hard. But I've moved away from. I started with like a 1 hour well-being seminar, and I think that's not necessarily the right thing. It's a great introduction, and I still do them, but I think everybody needs to have a physical first aider and a mental health first aider in their sports club. It's going to be great. But I got some feedback around one of the talking groups that I'm part of, and that just made me. And I'm not going to go into it too much because it might identify them, but that just kind of made me go, yeah, doing the right thing, absolutely 100%. I've helped one person, brilliant. Yeah, I know I've helped someone, so if I can help another person now, then great, that's fine. I'll carry on doing it. You know, if I, I think rather naively, I think this time last year I set myself the task of supporting 1 million people in the year, and I sat there and what you usually do, you go gung ho. I've learned so much. I've learned an inordinate amount in this first year. Um, if I help one person, if I help two people get the right support that they need to look after their own mental health, and I can keep a roof over my head between running my training courses, and then that allows me to have the time to do the free stuff, then I'm a happy bunny. Yeah, that's all that matters to me, and that's not completely altruistic. You helping other people is good for my is good for my mental health. And that's one of the sort of 10 keys happy living. Supporting other people is really really good for your own mental health. So it's one of my coping mechanisms. Yeah, and if I know I can help someone, then it makes me feel better.
Yeah, that always reminds me of that Friends episode where Joey is going to do the telethon, and Phoebe says, "Yeah, but that's just for you." And he said, "Yeah, but there's no such thing as a selfless act, and everybody, whenever you do something, it makes you feel good." But it always makes me chuckle. Here's one for you though: if you've helped that one person, you've also helped the people surrounding that one person. So I reckon that million will be a lot closer than maybe you're giving yourself credit for. Now, I saw on social media you were doing an online course with people in Dundee,
Yes.
and with a rugby club I know well, and there's lots of good people in there at Harris Rugby Club who are a phoenix from the flames. They almost disappeared and they've come back fighting. And the way they've come back fighting is by creating a community atmosphere that people want to be part of. And they work really hard. Through lockdown, they were doing things out in the community. They were trying to support each other. When you get that enthusiasm from a group, do you try and encourage them to go forth and do good things?
Yeah, it doesn't matter who does it, does it? Yeah, whether you're talking to me, whether you're talking to Andy's Man Club, and all the other great, blokes, Tough Enough to Care, Man Gang, all those. It doesn't matter who's doing it, does it? As long as someone's doing it, um, that's what matters. There's so many great resources. Pick and choose, as I say. Pick the bits. Give a ruck. They've got some great resources as well. If you for rugby clubs, so it doesn't matter. I don't mind if you don't want to use my resources, as long as you're doing something. So go ahead, do your own thing. As long as you understand the impact and you understand that you've got to, if you are doing stuff around mental health, that you build a team that can look after each other, because it can be really really draining on you as an individual to take that responsibility on yourself and look after everybody else. So make sure that if you are doing it, you've got that support network around you, because that's
They,
really key.
there's a nice one. That's believe it or not, that question was actually in my head, and now you've set me up nicely for that. Supporting other people. So I'm a pretty simple individual. I'm a husband. I'm a dad. Hopefully, I'm a friend. I'm a teacher. So I'm a colleague. I'm an employee. I'm kind of a line manager. I'm a coach. If I've got lots of hats like you, I have to have lots of hats. Um, so, is the first step looking after yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If you don't, you can't pour from an empty cup, I think is the famous saying. But
Yeah.
the analogy I like is we've all got a mobile phone, haven't we? We've all got one of those, and when you drain the battery out of a mobile phone and you let it go completely dead, you plug it back in. What happens to it? It doesn't start up instantly, does it? It takes 5-10 minutes for it to get going, and that's the same with you. Top yourself up every so often. Do something for you. It's not it's not a selfish act to go and spend an hour a week on yourself, just doing something for you, because that keeps your battery charged. that keeps you in a good place. So find that time for you, find your taps, find your outlets, understand them, and look after yourself, because that will allow you to look after everybody else around you, and reach out and create that network, create that support network around you, so that you can turn to them and talk to them. Because without that, you'll run yourself down,
Do
and you
you
won't be able to
find
live your
that
dream.
some people, so this is possibly touching on the mindset aspect of mental health. Do you find that people try something? So for me, I can take a dog for a walk, play with my kids, go and coach. There are things I can do that make me focus probably on something else, whether it's the outside world, the dog, my kids, the task, the what, and and it gives me that sense of possibly helping others, but also switching off and then being able to pour. Do you find that some people find it a struggle because the first thing they try doesn't instantly have an impact?
Yeah. And that's kind of the key. Yeah, where I got into a real bad situation in the first lockdown, because the only thing I really had as a way out was playing rugby. And then obviously couldn't. So I tried running, hated that. Don't like running.
Amen, brother. Amen.
And I think this is the thing. A lot of people will turn around to you and go, you see a lot of it on we go back to social media. The keys to success: get up at 4 a.m., go for a 5K run, this, that, the other. No, that wouldn't make me a success. That would make me a more miserable, grumpy old man. I've got a bad back and a dodgy knee, and you tell me to get up at 4 a.m. and go for a 5K run. Yeah, it's not going to set my day off in the right way. So you have to try lots of different stuff until you find the stuff that's right for you. And that's that. And don't and as disheartening as it can be when something doesn't work, you got to try again. When it comes to things like CBT, when I did CBT for the first time, didn't work. Learned it a bit more about it, and I can see the benefits of it the second time I did it. You go to a counsellor, you might not have that right relationship with that counsellor or therapist. Doesn't mean that counselling or therapy is wrong. It just means that that therapist isn't right for you. And it's like you say, exercise. Just because somebody goes for a 5K run every morning doesn't mean it's right for everybody. Some people, it might be walking the dog. So, getting squished by bigger, heavier, fitter, much faster people on a Saturday afternoon is not for everybody. But I happen to enjoy it. And
Matt, I'm beginning to think you and I are the same person.
well, we've got the same hairline, so
I don't know if you've heard John Kerwin, All Black, who, quite high profile, I suppose, to talk about mental health at that point, because it's still not necessarily a taboo subject, but a subject of ignorance for a lot of people. And All Blacks are not supposed to have mental health issues, and mental health is quite often associated with weakness, and
yeah,
that's one of the reasons we hear that men specifically won't talk about mental health, because they don't want it to be seen as a sign of weakness. Now, I've listened to possibly half a dozen times. He does, I think it's called Don't Tell Me the Score podcast. I think it's Simon Mundy who asked the questions, and John Kerwin's on it, and I absolutely love it. And it's almost a reset for me. And he talks about resets through the day. So back to the coffee bit, he likes coffee, but the bit that is the reset for him is the process of making the coffee. And he turns the phone off and he looks out the window and he listens to the noise and he makes a nice coffee and he has a nice coffee. He talks about being in the shower and nothing on, obviously nothing on, but no music, no, people that take stuff and watch stuff in the shower. He just enjoys being in the shower. And
yeah,
those are these little check moments that are for him. How do people do that? Because life's busy. We got
yeah.
to do everything, and we got to compete with the next door neighbor on social media, and we have to look like we're having a great time.
Make it part of your routine. Schedule it. It's daft as it sounds, but if you are a busy person, fine, make that time. You schedule in an hour, of whatever it is. If you can't schedule it because you don't know when it's going to be, because you don't know when the kids are going to be unwell, you don't know when Amazon's going to turn up, you don't know if you've got to go to work today because might have COVID or whatnot. Use 5 minutes. Spread it out over the week. Take 5 minutes. Find something that you can do. Knitting. Just grab your knitting and. My daughter's really got into her knitting. Grab knitting and knit for 5 minutes. You just take that process, find yourself in the now rather than worrying about what's going on for 5 minutes. If it's making a cup of coffee like that, that's brilliant. That process of just taking 5 minutes to stop. Take your lunch break. Step away from your desk and go for a walk. Enjoy your commute if you commute. Don't sit there on your laptop, working. Spend half an hour reading a book and then maybe half an hour doing some work if it's a long commute. Do those sorts of things. But sometimes it can just be as good as getting a good night's sleep. That works. So go to bed half an hour earlier rather than watching that extra episode on Netflix or whatever it is that can wait till tomorrow because it's there and it's not going anywhere. All that's easier said than done. I get that. There are days that my self-care goes out the window. And if you saw my to-do list, which is sat down here, it's horrendously long.
Don't.
And I think I could, but at time, I realised I'm very lucky in the fact that I recognise my signs and symptoms now, so I can tell when I've pushed myself too hard, and I need to take a break. There are those out there that can't until it gets too late, and I think that's a tough thing. So if you can schedule in and make those 5 minutes, you're probably less likely to hit that point of despair and that point that you're going to end up broken. Not that you're broken, you're not broken. That's the wrong thing to say. You're unwell.
Yeah.
But,
I'm intrigued. We're winding down. I could talk to you all day, Matt. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. But I'm a teacher, and I've been a teacher for a long time. And if you believe social media, if you believe the media, if you believe just the nonsense you hear from strangers in the street, the future's bleak because all kids want to do is be on TikTok. They're never away from their screens. They're the root of all evil. They're lazy. They want everything handed to them. It winds me up because it's a stereotype that I don't know who it's fueled by and what the purpose of it is. But what challenges can you see for the future, but what motivation or inspiration do you take from what's going on now and the conversations we're having now that will make it better in the future?
it's the challenges for the future and the challenges for our kids is that we're trying to make the decisions for them based on our experiences. Now, I look at my stepson Josh. I've been a 17-year-old lad before, done that, been there, but not in the times that he's been a 17-year-old lad. He's got 2 years of school that he's had to teach himself. And without social media and without his computer and without all that, he wouldn't have seen anyone at all. Wouldn't have been able to communicate with anyone because he'd have been, sat in our tiny village, with me for company, which God forbid. So what the issue we have is that we are making decisions based on our experiences as adults as what is right, not necessarily looking at it through the eyes of the youngsters and what's affecting them and how it can affect them. We sit there and talk about kids being lazy because they sit on their computers. Now, our generation would have been considered lazy by the previous generation because we weren't working at the age of 14 and 15. We were still in education. And then you go back prior to that where you had kids as young as 3 working in roles. So each generation is going to look at something very, very differently because, as I said, about those lenses that we have. And so that's going to be the challenge. And I think we need to ask our kids what their challenges are and accept them as what they are, not compare them to the challenges we faced, not compare them to the challenges a generation ago who were fighting wars. They're very, very different challenges, and you can't look at them the same way. So ask kids, talk to the youngsters, accept that problems that kids are facing these days are very different to the problems that they were facing 20, 30, 40 years ago, 10 years ago even. And don't assume that the way that we look at the world is the right way. Because, I think we can pretty much judge that the way that we've looked at the world for the last 30 or 40 years, we've done quite a bit of damage to it.
Yeah,
We're not exactly the best place to turn around and go, you're lazy.
yeah.
Um,
We
so
we
yeah,
were
that that
we were
that would
asleep at
be
the wheel on a lot of things, weren't we? Especially mental health. So because we're having these conversations, because it is on social media and it is on TikTok, and some pretty high profile people are talking about it. I heard somebody yesterday saying, it was on the radio, saying, has Simone Biles changed the game for mental health? Now, I'm not entirely convinced by that, but that was a significant episode.
yeah,
But lots of things are significant episodes. It's the impact and what happens next to
yeah,
me that's important. London 2012's legacy wasn't necessarily Super Saturday helped, but Jessica Ennis, Mo Farah, Greg Rutherford, they weren't there to inspire. They weren't the ones turning up every morning at training and in the evening and giving them feedback and giving them the lifts. There has to be follow through. What gives you hope for the future?
the fact that we're having conversations now, and like you said, it doesn't matter whether you've got that massive platform, to be able to turn around and affect 1 million people. If you can affect the life of one person for the better, whether if you're a grassroots sports coach who turns up and stands in a cold, wet, muddy field, for 50% of the year, then and you're helping someone, brilliant. But we need to encourage that more, because grassroots sports is struggling, and it is, volunteers are hard to come by. But I think the more we have these conversations around mental health, the more that we promote grassroots sports as a way of supporting people. Not all people, don't get me wrong, it doesn't fit everybody's, playing sport doesn't fit everybody's character type. But my hope for the future and what I'm looking forward to is every single club having an open and honest conversation, whether you're a Premiership football club that plays at the elite level in Europe, down to a level 45 club that struggles to get 11 players together on a Sunday afternoon. You've all got that ability to have a chat, and it's not considered weird or attention seeking or peculiar to want to talk about stuff like that. So that's my hope for the future. And I think conversations like this, and the platform that you're giving me to have these conversations, and the platform you're giving people, like you said, you spoke loads of people about mental health, and you've had loads of conversations about their stories and stuff, and that's just amazing. And social media isn't all bad. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without it. You wouldn't be able to do what you do without it. So we just have to be able to pick and choose what we look at, and understand that everything is good and everything is bad, and we just need to work out the bits that we want. So that's my hope, that everybody can have the conversations I didn't have as a youngster, and everybody gets some sort of support moving through. And what that will do is, if we can have these conversations early, there's always people that are going to end up in crisis. But if we can have conversations earlier on in the process, a lot less are going to fall through to crisis. So a lot less people are going to need the services that are now massively overburdened with the NHS, because a lot less people will hit rock bottom, because we tend to wait for people to hit rock bottom and then build them up rather than stop them falling. So that's what I think these conversations will do.
Brilliant. My wife watches the ambulance program I don't know what it's called. They're in Lancashire. I can't handle hospital programs or anything like that, but I tended to catch the end of it for the good news stories at the end. And so the area this ambulance service covers was enormous,
Mm.
but a huge percentage of the calls weren't really anything to do with physical issues. They were to do with mental health, and it was mind blowing to me. And in previous roles that I've had, I've dealt a lot with mental health, but my education on it was just learning through the next experience and my own experiences through friends and family. And one of the things I say, and I'm interested to know your thought on this. I think you'll agree, but I think everyone has mental health,
Oh yeah.
and there's this feeling that, oh, he's got mental health issues. We've all got mental health issues, because I feel we're on a spectrum of, and we move up and down it according to, but there are obviously the extremes. So I posted mental health, and we still there?
Yeah, sorry, I missed all of that
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, sorry. So I posted something on my social media about Maryland cookies being something that helps with mental health. I then got a birthday cake from my next door neighbour that was a Maryland cookies birthday cake with Maryland cookies as a present, and as my secret Santa this year, I was given Maryland cookies. So it kind of made me laugh, but it also made me think people are listening, and people are also willing to help with a solution. Now, it was a tongue in cheek, and I don't want that to sound like I'm undermining anything, but it did make me think people are listening, and you'll sometimes be surprised by who it is that's listening. So by having more people trained and involved, we're going to cover a greater area, I suppose. With these rugby clubs and sports clubs and community clubs that you're working with, give us a final shout to what it is you want them to do and how it is that can help.
So, professional club wise, at the end of the season, and it's coming up soon, and I know it's difficult because you've got your sponsors and you've got all sorts of things to agree with, but the biggest contributions and the biggest asks that we get are for club specific stuff. So if you are planning on sending stuff away, or you're planning on just chucking it in landfill, which some of it does end up there. If we could take a little bit of that, that would be lovely. And I know there are problems with sponsors and agreements, and not wanting other people reselling your stuff, and I get that, but a little bit would go a long, long way. And for the grassroots sports clubs that want support or need support, jump on the Mindset Sport website. There's loads of stuff on there, whether it be about race, sexuality, mental health, physical health, financial. And I'd like to build those resources more so that it's like a one-stop shop for looking after your players. So if anybody's got any resources, chuck them my way. Jump on there. And if you want training, you can jump onto that spot, apply for it. And, I can, when I get enough cash generated through the community kit bag and training from the mindset side of it, I will get more and more places available. And so if you work for a company that wants training, think about this. Don't have to be me, but that will fund Mindset Sport. If you're holding an event, think about the community kit bag rocking up, whether it be as a community involvement event where you just need more people to get involved in sport, then fine, I'll rock up with that. If it's a fundraising event where you've got people who would spend some money, brilliant, come get me involved in that, so that we can put more spaces on. Just get involved some way. There's always a way to get involved, from elite level down to Sunday afternoon running around for 20 minutes of the 80. There's always a way to get involved, and we can have a chat and send me stuff. You can just send me stuff. And I can repurpose it and make it better and give it to somebody that needs it.
I love it. Matt, thank you for your time. I've absolutely loved speaking to you. Please keep in touch, and if there's anything I can do, just shout, just tweet, just share, just do whatever you need to do, and I'm keen to champion this cause as much as I can.
Your support is absolutely amazing. You and Sean at Fill Your Boots, and obviously all the ambassadors that we've got, and the sponsors we've got for the kit bag trailer. It's just amazing. We'll be able to do it without you guys. And it's a massive, massive thank you for letting me share this space with all the famous people that you could have filled it with.
Your message is just as, if not more important. Matt, thank you, my man. All the very best.
Yes, Bruce.
Gotta love that guy, and anybody that shares a hairline with me is already my brother. What a message, and it comes from his own personal experience, and that then means you're passionate. If you're passionate, you're going to put all your time and energy and resources and enthusiasm into it. And as you can hear, Matt's still dealing with his own thing, but part of the kick is that he's helping others, and that's good for him. If you can help, please, please, please get in touch. Get in touch with me and I'll hook you up. Let's try and get more people involved in the community kit bag, and then we have more mental health, first aid people trained, and then we can have that message spread much wider. You heard the man. His hope for the future is we can have more of these conversations without them feeling awkward or weird. I have absolutely loved it. It's always good for my mental health to speak to some of these inspiring people, and I'm now going to go away and see what else I can come up with to try and support Matt and his mission. If you've enjoyed it, you can catch us on Apple, Acast and Spotify. You can also watch on Facebook and YouTube. My name is Bruce Aitchison, and my happiness is egg-shaped, and I hope you look after yourself. Please stay safe and have those conversations. I look forward to speaking to you all again very, very soon. Thank you.